All right, so
I've just started
everybody,
recording.
okay. Thank you, Al. And so both Wales and I went to the eLearn World Conference on e-learning in Las Vegas in October. And so let's see if I can make this. All right, so sorry. There is Wales on the left-hand side. He actually did a poster session. So he actually had a chance to talk to people and hang on a second. I can't. Oh, there we go. So he did one on using a mutual user virtual environments for professional development of parent educators. So that's the project he's been working on. So there he is actually talking to a gentleman about his project. And that is a very bad picture of me on the right doing the presentation. And I can't even read it anymore. But it was the paper that Eileen and I did, and Eileen did with K-12 educators in a virtual environment. And actually, I thought it went well. We had, I think, about 14 or 15 people, which for that conference was actually quite a few people. So there was a great deal of interest. And the paper actually got published as part of the proceedings, so that was, we were very excited about that. What is interesting is both of us in our using a virtual immersive environments, this was definitely an e-learning online kind of conference. There were about 400 people there. So there was a lot of conversations about, and they were predominantly educators, and so everyone who was attended the conference did everything from a poster session like Wales did, and I think there were about 20 or 25 poster sessions all in one room. They were very smart. They had appetizers and alcohol down in that area, so it was pretty packed. And then everybody else did basically anywhere from 20-minute to about 30-minute presentations. So it was crazy turnover. There were lots and lots of presentations going all the time. We met a gentleman that I would love for us to be able to invite, Scott Headley. What's interesting is that Scott also did a poster session and was just 2 sessions down from Wales. And he had created a game-based learning in ethics education that was a face-to-face course that people, somebody has their microphone on. Saley, I think that might be you. But what's fun now is that he is taking it from this face-to-face to an online environment, and he literally is working with students right now to recreate that game-based learning and ethics education course and creating it in a virtual world. And so we saw some of the beginning aspects of what he is doing. As you see there, he's from George Fox University in Oregon, and he's very, very interested in our group. I do have a link to his paper as well. Eileen, I thought I would kind of send it along to Mark, since it's game-based learning, and for that F to an online virtual. So that was actually kind of, it was actually kind of cool to be able to see how he was thinking through all of that. And as I said, I told him a lot about our group, and he's very interested. One of the things that I saw, and we all know this, And I think it's because there wasn't a lot of actual immersive virtual environments, VR, AR at this conference, and I'm not surprised now that I've been there, but it does seem that people are very interested in it. That virtual at this conference could mean online LMS kinds of things to immersive environments like our presentation and the work that we're doing in Kitely and Second Life, and then or it could be virtual reality and AR. I think we have real possibilities, and Eileen, you had said this in the past, of being able to potentially make some impact at this conference. It is a very paper-based conference, but as Wales said, that there are opportunities for you don't have to have a published paper, or you don't have to necessarily have the kind of research thing that I saw in many of the papers in order to be able to be, have the possibility of like doing a poster session like Wales did. So I think there are some real possibilities in that kind of thing. So, so for example, I wanted to just show you one of the workshops that was there because I was very interested in it. So you're seeing using virtual reality and telepresence robotics in making. And so I went to the, at first I wasn't even sure, telepresence robotics, I wasn't even sure that I was, was this going to be too high tech or whatever for me. So it's very interesting that this was actually, let me go back. So it's actually the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and in collaboration with 4-H Extension, and they've actually created a maker space. So a space that had 3D printers, they had computers, they had all of this woodworking kinds of things. All of these, it was a space literally for being able to make things. And what was interesting is it's on the western side of Nebraska. And Lincoln is obviously more on the east side. And they created this maker space, and then they were using telepresence and again, a word that we often know in our virtual immersive kinds of things. But it was a telepresence in the sense that they do have this kind of low-tech robotic kind of setup where from Lincoln this makerspace could be open and people can be using it. And here there was someone who was working on some of the devices cutting acrylic, and they were having a hard time with it. So instead of having all the staff be in this one place, they literally were able to build presence with someone who was in Lincoln and this little robotic thing that they had to talk to each other. And so whether it was leading instruction, as it says, co-teaching, in-time support, or tours of this space. And they were actually, well, let me go to here. I should have put this one here. Literally, this was an iPad on this device that, and we've kind of seen them sort of on wheels, and it's going around. So you have someone who's creating presence, if you will, from Lincoln with the people who are at this makerspace all the way across Nebraska, and being able to allow people to be there and to do all kinds of work. So if I go back to this, they were also doing digital creation projects with kids. And they were using virtual reality. I don't know whether you'll be able to see this. I'm sorry, these were photos I took with my phone. But so they were using Facebook Spaces, and then they were going from place to place. They were having the students creating projects together in this virtual reality digital process. And the kids were having the opportunity to try things out, to create a dog, for example, and be able to, add colors to it and create something, which at the very end, the 3D printer would create what the students had created. And so it was a very cool process that they were using aspects of things that we've talked about in our courses for emerging technology, and be able to do it with the instruction being done from elsewhere, and have people in this maker space to be able to do that kinds of things. So yeah, libraries are getting these too. I mean, I think we've probably seen them like on doctor's TV show or something where, this device might be tooling its way through. But there is actually a company that creates the wheel apparatus that you can buy and do the same kind of thing. But I thought it was certainly an interesting telerobotics. So that's actually, they added a 4-H t-shirt over it just to make it cute. But it was low tech. I mean, in some ways it's low tech use of the technology, and yet helping students to use virtual reality to a point where they can see their creation being done on a 3D printer. So I just thought that was kind of a cool piece, that one of the workshops that I went to. Uh-oh, what happened to the rest of my slides? Oh no. All right. Well, I had a few more slides in there. Oh, wait. So let me see if I can find my notes. Because Jamie Cassip was there from Google Education, and he was talking a great deal about even students these days, and sort of different ways of interacting with students, and talking about the skills that were needed for the 21st century. And again, we had those conversations in our class. And he said that there was a real need to move to problem solving is obviously a huge 21st century skill. And rather than doing it as we often do with, okay, here's a problem, you solve it, and a sense of there's a right or wrong answer, actually asking what problem do you want to solve? How do you want to solve it? So the what problem do you want to solve is that whole purpose of what students tend to be showing. How do you want to solve it, which is a bit of the autonomy, and what skills do you need to solve it, that sort of mastery. And talking a lot about collaboration is how problems are solved. And there was another couple of slides that would have been talking about somebody else, but why that presentation by Jamie was about a day or so ahead of my presentation. And so I decided that I was going to add this final slide on our virtual residency. And and tell people about that, because the other piece that Jamie said was, and since we're all kind of higher ed at this moment, it's giving a new challenge to higher education. And he said this came from the conversations with his daughter, who had completed a master's, had completed a PhD. She had graduated. She was an alum, not like a couple of us in this room. And the only connection she had was the occasional alumni newsletter. And he then said, you know, we talk about lifelong learning model, and higher ed, we talk about it all of the time. And he said, we need to start meaning it. And when he said that, I knew I had to add this slide, because I wanted to tell people how Empire State College, and with this first virtual residency, and just briefly said something about INP, that the ability of us to be able to not only give current students, alumni, and people like Selby, and hopefully Scott and others, who literally, this is lifelong learning. This is our opportunity to continue to collaborate together, to figure out problems, to do the kind of work that we want to do, and allow us to stay connected as a community. That I just had to put us in there, because I just thought it was pretty cool. So that's my presentation.
This is wonderful, Terry, and I think you're really good at the promotions. And so I'll just kind of slip over to what some of the things that I had. But before I go on about some of the other extensions, do people have questions for Terry? And I'm not really trying to moderate this, especially because I'm not really good with this headset right now, or I don't have a headset on. So questions for Terry? I think people are pleased, and I'm just so glad that you were able to bring forth some of what we're doing.
People were very, very interested. And like I said, I do get a sense, and Eileen, you said it, that I think people are really interested in this. And part of it is that people have, they just don't necessarily understand what we do, and how we use it, how it can be used. There's still a great struggle, as I know Eileen will say, that you know, people just trying to be able to figure out online and e-learning, and continuing to get it to adapt to new technologies. And I know that Jamie also cautioned everyone in the room, and you know, he said technology is constantly changing. It is always going to change. And he says you can't keep up, you can't master it before you can teach it. And I think that for many people, that's their biggest fear. If I don't know how to do this, and I get that myself, having, you know, taken this master's, that if we try to keep up with all the latest things and we try to master it, as we all talked about in, you know, our early emerging tech classes, that stuff is constantly changing. And I think probably what's even better is to sort of, I remember Nicola often saying, you know, there's always the latest flavor, the latest, newest, whatever. But, you know, if you're looking for platforms to be able to use with your students or whatever, that the latest, greatest thing may not be here in 6 months, you know, and so being able to kind of understand all of that. But there still is a whole lot of learning that's going on out there just in the realm of e-learning and the technology and so forth. But it's pretty exciting. So.
I really hope to thank you and Wales for making the trip out there. As you can see, technology is the way we communicate today. There's just no two ways about it, whether you use virtual reality or something else. But I'm watching the clock, and I'm sorry that I got so late here.
And next year it's in New Orleans. I forgot that flight.
Oh, good. Let's hope it's not during the tornado season. Well, in Selby's down in Texas. I'm not sure how close he is to the water, but we'll have to be, I should have meant a hurricane season. I'll just go over a couple of things that came to me this past week. I hope I can click the slides. Yeah. Okay. And I'm afraid to try zooming in because then I will wind up changing them myself. But I had the opportunity to get to a SUNY conference on Friday. And on Wednesday and Thursday, this is my little middle slide, I went to an EdTech specialist group that makes the tests. It comes out of Pearson's, which is a big test maker. And I was part of the group looking at how to make these new tests. And they had a 20-year-old test that was silly. It was funny to see the things they had in it. So it's confidential what happened there, but the idea is that finally even New York State, which is not the leader in technology, is starting to look at how do we improve things. But what was interesting, I went to the one-day conference, and there were people presenting from California. A young man who was looking at, and I'll show you in a minute some of what he was looking at healthcare in nursing training. And you may not know all the things that there are a number of Mallet students right now doing things in healthcare. And one of the healthcare is so expensive, and I'm sure Al can come in on that. And it's so hard to get in front of the x-ray machines, to get into an operating room, to get the patients to practice with, that they're really looking at simulations and augmented reality. So Pearson's happened to be the one working on creating this virtual patient. And they were working in conjunction with Microsoft, coming out of Seattle. And you'll see in a few minutes what was going on there. But in theories, and I highlighted that, we had people coming in from California at this, and they really hoped to get the SUNY system working with the UCal system, get both coasts involved. Now, these are a lot of people like me, the visionaries, who see the big picture. So in practice, it's going to take a while for that to happen. But there were a number of people who were interested in the kind of work we're doing, because this gentleman was showing some very amazing work that required millions of dollars to do. Now, the companies will start making that more accessible, but what I'm seeing is that these people are driving business back to something like open source, which is much more accessible. You don't need the big headsets. And this all comes under the word immersive, which kept on coming up. I see these as all kind of together. But there were a number of people, and I haven't been able to sit down long enough to connect with all the people that I met who are interested in the kind of work we're doing. So we have to crank up the Institute for New Paradigms, because I've been out promoting it, Terry's been promoting it, and we have a lot of good ideas, but we have to get thinking a little more on the kind of conceptual framework, which nobody can get their head around yet, because the basic ways that people learn don't change much, and I'm sure Selby could tell us more about that. But we struggle with things in a Piagetian way, we help each other out in a Vygotskian way, and we get motivated, we scaffold things. That happens no matter what your environment. So we're seeing now healthcare is coming in. I also got to hear people who are doing a lot with storytelling. And I actually, Selby's working on that. We should start, if you go way back, we were supposed to start blogs, Facebook pages. That's where we have to get going if we're going to establish credibility as a think tank. And so, and I want to follow my signs a bit because a lot's been going on. I want to fill you in, and I just, the other thing too is, you may or may not know, I got bumped up to being program coordinator. Meg Benke moved up to being provost. So they moved me in, but consequently I've had an awful lot of administrative work to do with our new registration system. But I'm also going to be able to leverage some of that very brilliant meeting that we had when most of you guys came and supported that virtual residency. That has been getting a lot of buzz within Empire State College. And I think we're going to start seeing more people coming in as a result of that. So lots of things happening. So I'll just look at my shit. Other people that I got to talk to, fashion and retail, they very much like the augmented reality because they have to sell right now. So I get to try on headsets. They're going to have more funding. We have some students right now in the program who are doing an AR, augmented reality tutorial and course. And I'm going to ask them to come and talk to us at some point. They're really doing it. It's a lot more work. Right now, virtual reality is much, much easier to work with. You can download open source islands. You can modify. You don't have to build from scratch. Right now, in the augmented reality, you're still pretty much building from scratch. People, though, are trying to find better ways to do it, but it's still very labor intensive. So when you've got something like fashion and business, they have more money to put into things. So they're doing work, and I'm trying to read the last group. I got to see some robotics that were being set up to bring these cameras in. They're using these robotic systems like you saw with the makerspaces. And this particular gentleman was showing what he did in California to bring cameras into places where they couldn't go. So Al would have liked this because he was bringing video cameras in without those big rails that they use to stabilize them. So they're trying to make things more teacher accessible. But I found, and again, I just haven't had a chance to follow up. And Terry, I had to submit that other paper to Sage University tonight. A number of papers are coming in that I've had to deal with. But there's many people who are interested in what we're doing and want to join us. Also, if you look at my last point there, they need to come up with a more common language as we move into these higher ways of working than were doable in the past. You know, it's something that everybody was talking about. Now, this was the activity that I was showing you. This gentleman happens to be an actor, and they brought him into Seattle. They have these banks of video cameras all around, and Al, I don't know if you've worked with anything like this, but they took pictures of him in 3D all around. He simulated going into anaphylactic shock, and they were able to, we put on our headsets, and he literally died in front of us. Well, figuratively died in front of us. They showed what happened. Now, I was saying there he was in a hospital setting. They should have given him an EpiPen, but they were trying to find more ways to train healthcare people. Right now, they do a lot with case studies. So they were looking to see, would this be a better way to train nurses who can't really always see a patient going into anaphylactic shock? You know, they wanted to be looking at new ways to teach. So this gentleman did research about it, and I'll send these slides out to you. There's a very interesting little video that shows you what he did. And let me see this one coming up. But as I talk to people, the augmented reality is getting the hype that virtual reality got 10, 15 years ago. Everybody's saying it's going to close all the gaps, and it really is an interesting piece. But as you know, we're still having trouble, true confessions, even at Empire State College, getting people to use learning management systems. You know, now when you throw in the additional thing of a headset with more complex development by the faculty, I think it's going to be some leaders who will go out there and get started, but it's not going to be taking over the education field in no time at all. You know, it's going to be a big setup. And but people want to come, they want to meet with this group. Our problem is, we don't have a lot of time together, but I think we've identified there's a lot of things coming out there. We're getting our own collective of people, and we're hoping to start finding ways to bring these things in. Now, there was a gentleman at SUNY IT who I actually tried to reach through email a while ago. He never got back to me, so when I saw him, I kind of wanted to say, I was the person whose email you ignored, but he was doing things with augmented reality. But it wasn't that much more impressive than what some of our Mallet students are doing right now, and coming to, hopefully they'll come and talk to you pretty soon. So I think that there are ways that we can start bridging over from immersive virtual reality even into some of these other areas. So I think that being able to come together and talk is going to be an important piece that we can bring. And I don't know if this is all showing up. I'll send this out. And a group of us, Nicola, Dr. Alon, some of you know her, I've worked with her myself. We've been in virtual reality since about 2005. And, so we're old diehards. We're starting to see the change, and the title I put in was, what do they call it? Challenging Goliath. Open source meets higher ed. And I've been publishing on this for quite a while myself, but we're starting to see things coming in, and they had, when I put in for this, it looked as though they were only going to give us 20 minutes. When they came back, they are going to actually give us 50 minutes. So it will be a bigger opportunity to present what we're doing, and I can't tell, I had a screen capture on the top, which may not have come through, but on the bottom, part of what we're talking about, this semester, the Mallet program piloted the first immersive residency on our own VR islands, focusing on the topic of augmented and virtual realities, reinforced by the immersive nature of the very conference itself. Furthermore, since spring of 2018, we've initiated a progressive ongoing think tank about visions and challenges facing the integration of true emerging technologies with learning environments, countering the often very narrow perspective of educational technology programs. A bulk of our students do work with learning management systems, but we can't restrict our vision to that and be a progressive program. So what this conference is going to give us a chance to talk about that for 50 minutes. Al's going to be there, Saylee is going to be there, and it looks like you're going to have more time to talk than I thought. And I will send out the link. I'll keep on sending it out. If you register by the 14th, which is Wednesday, you can get to the conference, unless they run out of spaces before you register. They can bring in some 350 people. And I know Al's been there before. Plus, okay, Saylee's all registered. Terry, you want to say something? Because you set up some booths before, and I'm going to try to get those resurrected. And one thing I want to do is, if any of you folks here have things you want to put in the booth, just slides like this, you could go. The trainings next. I forget exactly what the dates are with the training. They have wonderful things if anyone's been there. And I don't know, Selby, if you've been to the conference. I know Selby gets to everything. I think he's presented. But Terry, you want to just mention?
I have not presented. Well, I have talked. I've spoken in groups, when they ask for people to make comments on something, but I have not presented something. But I have been to it, and I will again. I will get if I can find it. Well, I can probably find it. I go through the booth, and I will probably get some pictures and make some articles about what you got going.
That'd be great. And Harry set up a nice booth for us a couple of years back, and I think it's still there. I'm putting in some of this to get crowdfunding.
Have you been there? I think last year they were trying to clear out the space. So we may have to just, go in and do another. We actually had a parcel of land that I just created a space for Empire State College. So it had some of the artifacts and things that we've had on our islands, and a number of students sent photos or other information that they wanted, and we just created photo boards that people, it was pretty rudimentary since that was my very first year of being in Second Life at the time. But yeah, I mean, it was very prominently Empire State College, the Mallet program. So we were also trying to tell people about the Mallet program since we were early on in the first years of it. So I think it's and a couple of us took turns being there in case people came by. So I don't know about freebies, Sally. Do you have freebies we can use?
Actually, I think she's referring to the fact if you go there, it's a 2-day conference. They have done a really nice job. They have areas set up where you can get free things. I think you can get other outfits.
Yeah, I mean, I've just started making stuff, and so I don't know, Eileen, if anything I've made is worth giving away. But anything that I've, because I just started making stuff this semester. So yeah, if you want me to give anything away free, just ask. I just don't know if anyone wants anything I've made so far.
Yeah, Eileen, from somebody who's done many face-to-face conferences, or for those of you who don't know, I work for AARP, so I constantly do senior fairs, and if there's one thing everybody wants, it's the freebies. Even at the eLearn conference, people were taking freebies, so I get to say.
Well, and I think too, we've got folks like Eugenio over there who's joined us. I know I'm going to try to get a different night next, like in the 2019, because a lot of people seem to be teaching on Monday nights who'd like to join us, but we have people coming in who can develop all sorts of things, and if I just have a chance, have had time to see what island space they're going to give us, we may have a place where we could put our own stuff in it.
Eugenio said earlier that he is available on Mondays now for a while. Right, Eugenio?
I think he had to leave. Remember,
No,
he said he had another meeting at like 10 after 8, so I think he's already...
Actually, he responded. He said, yep.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. I'm with another meeting, but it's online. But I can continue here.
Multitasking.
Yes.
We're more fun.
If we can at least get there. And now I have to multitask out of here. So, Al, if you were able, if people stay longer and you could send me anything, but if I guess I'm going to just keep pushing to get people to sign up to get to at least part of that conference. They didn't give us the greatest time. I know my husband's saying, wait a minute, 8 o'clock Saturday night, because it's 5 Pacific time. But it's, I said, it's a conference that I don't have to travel to. It's free. So you can't complain about everything. So I think that would be an opportunity for us. I'm trying to try to get over to that booth. And it's a great way to meet people. And we can promote. We're going to be talking about this group at it. So I think we have to keep on moving. And the challenge for us is we're all at a distance. We don't have time to get together that much to even theorize. We're more doing professional development among ourselves. So I'm hoping that we can move things along academically. The question is for all of us time. We're all very busy, and myself included. So we want to do this. But also another thing too, for Mallet, the Mallet program, and Selby, I hope you don't mind us just chatting a little bit. Part of what came out of that residency is, I think, a real interest in doing small presentations. I know Lee has been trying very hard to get the graduate student group going. I've been trying very hard to get faculty involved. We're starting to get more interest. And I'm anticipating that the Mallet program will have at least a quarterly mini seminar, where we get together, we have a topic and some chance to talk. So I'm going to be asking all of you for ideas and maybe to come in and head some of these groups. And so we want to kind of reinforce that community within Mallet and then continue it as people graduate and expand to more, expand bigger and beyond. We just have to have kind of a cohesive idea before we invite too many people, and they're going to say, well, what's your theoretical background? And we have to kind of think through that a little bit more. So we're kind of inviting people who I think can understand that we're still developing ourselves. But there are many things, but I do have to leave to get ready for a couple more things. But please stay, and I apologize for the sound issues. I don't know what happened to my other computer. I couldn't even type. I couldn't even type to tell you that I couldn't work on it. So thank goodness for my cell phone. I was able to email some of you.
Yeah, I heard it.
Eileen,
Quick question. Rumor had it that the EVD was coming. Is that true?
Yeah. Bill, I think so. We just got another push from and Selby. We're trying to get a doctoral program into our particular version of SUNY. SUNY's in many different places, and we're the adult college. And yes, the dean just sent out a note asking us who's got certain backgrounds. I think we're getting one step closer. We've been trying for a while, but hopefully by next September. So anyway, yeah, we did lose Eugenio. I hope that didn't scare him off. But yeah, Terry, I'm thinking we're close. We're close. I'm not really in that inner sanctum to know exactly, but Meg is now provost. She knows how to really connect with people, and I think some of the barriers came down. And Selby, I don't know about in Texas, but in New York State, the SUNY schools themselves are a little bit competitive. And they weren't too anxious to see us come up with a doctoral program, and so they put some barriers up, but I think it's been good for us. We've had to prove ourselves a little bit harder. So yeah, no, Terry, I think it's coming soon.
Okay.
Have a good night. Good night, everybody. Stay as long as you like, and Al, if you do have a tape, then I'll kind of make minutes from that, because quite a few people couldn't make it because of the weekend, and we'll give them some tapes. So thank you, everybody, and thanks for putting up with the glitches.
Good night. I have to run also because I got another meeting coming up shortly. I'll see y'all.
All right, bye, Selby.
Bye,
everybody.
And I have to stop the video, so ergo,
Okay.
au revoir.
All right. Bye, Saley.